We're going to go into chapter 17 today of Genesis. And first of all, I want you to think about Abram, how long ago he lived. This, according to this Bible, it says when chapter 17 starts, it's 1898 BC. And the first line of this chapter says, and when Abram was 90 years old and 9. So if you add 99 to 1898, you're getting pretty close to 2000. Around 2000 BC, Abram was born. So that's what, 4,000 over, about 4,025, 26, 27 years ago, Abram was born. And we know all about him. We learn about him in the Bible. And Abram was a very special man. God gave him that place with him to be that very special man. So when Abram was 90 years old and 9, the Lord appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am the Almighty God. Walk before me and be thou perfect. The Lord appeared to him. He saw him. And he told him, walk before me and be thou perfect. You know, in the Old Testament, as you study it, you learn about perfection in the Lord's sight. It is not so much that you are able to do everything completely like God would do it, but it's more like be perfect as far as worshiping idol gods, having anything to do with false gods, and also once that you know God, trying to do your best to live as he would have you to live. And this is what Abram had done. Abram believed God. That was what God really wanted him to do, was to believe him. When he believed in God and believed in what he said, then the Bible says God counted it for him as righteousness. So his believing in him was something that God wanted him to do, and wanted him to be thou perfect in believing him and living for him. The best that Abram could do by knowing God. And now Abram is seeing him. He says, and I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. A covenant. It's a contract or a bond between them. Something they had established between them to say that he would do this for Abram, and Abram would follow him and do his best to walk before him and be perfect. And he said, I will multiply thee exceedingly. He was going to make him big. He wasn't a big man. He was rich, yes. He was rich, but he wasn't somebody that thought of himself as a king. You could tell by when he met Melchizedek, who was the king of righteousness, that Abram paid him tithes of all. And Abram fell on his face. He fell on his face before God. And God talked with him, saying, as for me, oh my, talking to God like that. As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Yes, he is my father, my spiritual father, and I'm a Gentile. He's the father of many nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham, for a father of many nations have I made thee. So now we see, besides Isaac, he's going to be born. He hasn't been born yet. All he has is Ishmael. and then he's going to have children of Keturah, that every one of those sons, every one of those children that he had made a nation of people. So every son he had caused a nation to come into the world. And then on down and on down. So Abraham's children, besides spiritual children, Abraham's natural children are everywhere. In the Middle East, they're everywhere. They're there. And so he is a father of many nations. Naturally, he's a natural father of many nations. And he's the spiritual father of all of us Christians. That's a lot. And he called him then a new name. We've called him Abram up to now. But thy name shall be Abraham. For a father of many nations have I made thee. You know, when I was a girl, young girl, and we studied about Abraham in the Bible, I thought, is this Abraham Lincoln? Because that's who I'd learned about in school, Abraham Lincoln. But this Abraham did not have a last name. The Lord did that, didn't he? So that the one person that the name came from could be called by many names. For example, Abraham Lincoln. He was named Abraham out of the Bible, from the Bible, I'm sure. Abraham was his name. And Abraham Lincoln was a very wonderful man for us to have as an example of the name Abraham. And that's what I thought when I was a little girl. Then, I learned that he probably was named after the Abraham in the Bible. And the Abraham in the Bible did not have a last name. It says, but thy name shall be Abraham, for a father of many nations have I made thee. Don't you like the Lord? I mean, I know we love him, but don't you like him? I do. I like him. I like him giving Abraham a new name. A name that suited him. I think Abram itself meant something like High Lord. I'm not sure. Let's look back there and see what Abram meant. See if it'll have it in here. Okay, Abram. Abram. Well, it doesn't give us the definite definition of Abram, but I have read that it meant something like High Lord or something like that. In other words, more by himself. But when he named him Abraham, Ab in Hebrew, Ab is in Abba. They are a prefix about father. And Abraham meant a father of many nations have I made thee. And I will make thee exceeding fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. Name one king that came out of Abraham. You can name a lot because you know the whole Bible. But the one that I wanted to name was Jesus Christ. He's the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And he came out of Abraham. Of course, you know David. You know Jehoshaphat. You know, Asa. There's lots of them. Josiah. There's lots of kings that came out of Abraham. But Jesus Christ is the most wonderful and famous one. And he said, and I will establish my covenant between thee and thee, between me and thee, and thy seed after thee, in their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee, and to thy seed after thee. I'm not going to let you go. I'm not going to go away from you. I'm not going to go away from your seed. I'm not going to go away from the generations as they come down. as they live. Today, this covenant between Abraham and his seed is still in effect with God. Still in effect. When we are spiritual children of Abraham, we come into this covenant, everlasting covenant. He's going to be with us. Jesus said that. He said, I'll never leave thee nor forsake thee. And I'll be with thee all the way, even to the end of the world. So Jesus establishes that covenant with us, the covenant that God made with Abraham. And he said, and I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. And God said unto Abraham, thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore, thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. Now he's going to tell Abraham what he wanted him to do, what was his part of the covenant. This is my covenant, which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man-child among you shall be circumcised. And ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man-child in your generations, he that is born in the house or bought with money of any stranger, which is not of thy seed. He that is born in thy house, and he that is bought with thy money, must needs be circumcised, and my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised man-child, whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He hath broken my covenant. So God promised to be with Abraham and be his God and be the God of his the generations on down. Promised. But he promised with this one thing, that they needed to make a covenant with them in their flesh, a token of the covenant betwixt him and all of the generations after Abraham and Abraham. It was for them to be circumcised in their flesh. And so that's how that started, about being circumcised. I don't know if it was done other places or in other ways and other times and other people, but the Jews had a covenant between them and God that they would be circumcised. And so that's how a man shows in the family of Abraham that he is also a Jew, also coming under the covenant of Abraham. Now I know that some of the other children, the children of Ishmael, and they also have circumcision, but the fact is that God was, when he was speaking of making the covenant and thy seed after thee in their generations, he really was speaking of the Jews, but also Ishmael was his family, and they do the same thing because they also claim Abraham as their father and have that covenant between them and God. He said, so we know that was the token of their covenant. And God said unto Abraham, as for Sarai thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall her name be. And Sarah meant princess. From what I have read, let's see, 15. Yes, princess. A king's daughter is a princess, isn't it? A king's daughter. And I will bless her, and give thee a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her. Whoa! Now, Abram was 99. So Sarah, now we'll call her Sarah. Sarah was probably 89, because I believe she was about 10 years younger than him. So You 89-year-old women, I know I'm talking to somebody, down to 75, because that's me. How would you like God to promise that you were going to have a child? Most of you don't want a child at your age to raise. And Sarah she couldn't have a child. Hadn't had a child. But now God is saying, I will bless her and give thee a son also of her. And she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her. Well, let me stop there, because I'm going to read all about what he's saying about Sarah tomorrow. But thank the Lord for this covenant that God made with Abraham. Thank God, because it brought us Jesus. The Jews went on down from Abraham and kept that covenant and brought us down to having Jesus come to this world. So thank God for it. I will see you tomorrow. God bless you.